We are live here on Plus One EXP. My name is Tony Vicinda. I'm Chief Alchemist here at Plus One EXP, which is a weird little brand that multi-classes in tabletop game design, beard, and skincare alchemy, and the Bardic College of Content Creation. Our hope and desire is to help amazing designers find great players who love their games and help amazing players find great designers whose games they can love. We do that in a lot of different ways, but really my favorite one is to just sit down with creators, talk to them about the work that they're doing, and find out what the rest of us can learn from that or about the great games that they are making. Today we're sitting down with not just one and not just two designers, but four designers who are all working together on an anthology of games. It's about to go live over on Kickstarter called the Tiny Tome. I would love to tell you all about this, but I think these people are going to do it much better. I am very excited to have gotten a preview copy to check out, to hold in my hands. I just held it up right before we went on stream, and all of the creators were like, whoa, because they have not got a chance to hold on to it yet, but I have. And so let's meet them and hear a little bit more about the project. Let's start with Ash. Ash, why don't you tell people who you are, what you do, but tell us a little bit about Tiny Tome and the Tiny series that you've kind of started now. This is going to be the second project for.
Cool. Firstly, thank you for inviting us along. This is really cool. And yeah, really appreciate it. So my name's Ash. I am the owner and the social media person and the editor and all that kind of stuff at Longtail Games. Longtail Games bills itself as like an experimental tabletop games publisher. And the Tiny series is an experimental, I call it like a massively collaborative project, although that's a slightly misleading name. We can get into why. But the Tiny series started with Tiny Library, which was a deck of 50 single card RPGs. So every card is a kind of standalone game. Some of them are not really standalone games. They're more like exercises or things to think about or characters or tools that you might bring to a more traditional standalone game. And Tiny Tome is the spiritual successor to that, and that is a book of 50 one-page RPGs. And there's one important detail, which is that every single game is made by a different creator. So from text to layout, illustration, whatever they want to bring to that page, that is one creator's voice. So there's lots of different people coming together.
That's cool. I love it. I was a big fan of the Tiny Library. I love one of the things I talked about a lot last year, especially when Zine Quest was still a thing, is it's really hard you want to support everybody, and when there's 400 projects, that's really hard. And when somebody says, hey, we're going to get 50 creators together and make one project that we all contribute to in some part, it's way easier for me to get behind that, support it, and be super excited about not supporting just one, but a whole lot of creators. So I'm a huge fan of collaborative projects and things along this line. Speaking of those amazing creators, let's meet some of them who are here with us. Doreen, why don't you tell people who you are, what you do, where they can find you online, but also tell us about the game that you have going into the Tiny Tome.
Thanks, Tony. Hi, I'm Doreen. My full name is Idari Mohammed Noor, but you can call me Doreen. On Twitter, you can find me at Valeris, which is DVALERIS, which is sort of a game handle I've had since college. That header also starts my itch.io page, and it's all in my link tree in Valeris. I'm sure Tony's going to link to that if you are not already following Plus One EXP on Twitter. My game for the Tiny Tome is a power fantasy called Unreality Strictness. You can play it with 1 or 2 players. You can, though I wrote it originally as a 1-player exercise. It's based on the 2 stats generator by James Chip. He threw that together on, I think, NeoCities one day and put it on Twitter. I clicked on it and it gave me the 2 stats Unreality Strictness. And I thought, I can probably make a game out of this, I think. And then when Ash announced that he was doing the Tiny Tome project, I was like, I think it's time to expand this into a game. What it is, oh gosh, I could go on forever about like what a power fantasy is. It's on the one hand, you're in a very strict sort of confined realm, but you discover that you're connected to a realm of unreality where you are unbounded. And the way that you use that connection to strengthen or curb both sides in order to achieve your goals is basically the point of the game.
Awesome. I'm excited about it. We'll hear a little bit more about each of the games as we go through too, because I do want to do a little bit of a deep dive into each of them and get a little maybe of a taste of play. But I'm super excited to hear a little bit more about that as we go. Let's hear next from Tally. Tally, why don't you tell people who you are, what you do, where they can find you online, but also tell us a little bit about the game that you have in the Tiny Tome.
Hi, so my name is Tally, and my pronouns are she, her, and you can find me. You can find me on Twitter at Tallywinkle. You can see on the screen there, and as well, my link tree is actually under the same handle and same itch. You can find all my games at tallywinkle.itch.io. I guess I make mostly tabletop games these days. I kind of have dabbled in a little bit of both. I've written some interactive fiction games, which is sort of where I got started. My partner does a lot of work in like Pico 8 and other little kind of pixel games and puzzle sorts of things. So I've done a little bit of, doing a few little collabs with him. But yeah, I've done a lot of the tabletop games. And last year, there was the Solo But Not Alone bundle, which they're currently doing the part 2 of right now, fundraising for Jasper's, I can't quite remember the name. It's for suicide prevention. I came across that bundle. I bought it. I thought, oh, this looks, a good cause, looks interesting. And that's sort of where I discovered all of these, oh my God, there's solo RPGs. What is this? Is like really cool because I can always just play by myself. I don't need to have a party. I've been interested in things like D&D, but I realized that this world kind of exists. And as somebody who enjoys writing, it sort of felt like, okay, well, I can just make my own games. And it kind of went from there. So my game in the Tiny Tome is called Trash Bandits. And it is the tagline that I lifted from a tweet that I read is every raccoon is either planning a heist or in the middle of a heist. And I love that tweet for so long. And that's really what inspired this game. So along with other fun things like Crash Pandas and Honey Heist by Grant Horowitz, I think is the name. So basically, it's just kind of a quick little dice rolling game where you can create a little story about your raccoon. I envisioned it as a solo thing, but you could also do it with more people to play out what your raccoon looks like, what your heist is going down, and then what happens in the middle of the heist. Just kind of a goofy sort of game about raccoons and having fun. And I was really, this kind of came together quite quickly, and I was really, really happy with how it all fit together and just the general energy of it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, like I said, I'm super excited to hear a little bit more about Trash Pandas and your other work, or Trash Bandits. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I also did.
They are Trash Pandas in the game, but they are also bandits.
I also did drop a link to the Solo But Not Alone 2 bundle that is currently live right now. They've raised almost $25,000 to a little over $31,000 goal. Goes to support Jasper Game Day and suicide prevention. So if you're able to go check that out, it's a great way to get a bunch of solo games. Also, if you like solo games, hit follow on our channel. We just launched this month our new solo game series with Armanda, who is also one of the contributors to Tiny Tomes. Armanda Holler, who writes amazing solo games, but also is doing actual plays of them and then short reviews on our channel also too. So keep an eye out for that. It's been an awesome it's been awesome to have them join our team here, and I love seeing all the amazing kind of solo game renaissance we're going through right now. As a super fun time to be in RPGs. So let's hop up to Chris. Chris, same questions. Tell people who you are, what you do, where they can find you online, and tell us a little bit about your game that's in Tiny Tome.
Okay. My name is Chris Legge. You can find me on Twitter and Itch and pretty much everywhere with CRLEGGE. That's my handle most places. And pronouns are he, him. My game in Tiny Tome is totally real human adults, which kind of plays off the trope of, bunch of animals or kids stacked in a trench coat, trying to pass off as an adult. But I include a list of multiple types of animals, which, having actually played this for the first time very recently, I did come to the realization it is just as chaotic as I was hoping it would be. Things go south very fast. Yeah.
Are you saying you didn't rigorously playtest your game hundreds and hundreds of times?
Playtesting is very important.
Before you put in the Tiny Tome?
This game in particular, this was actually the first game I put out. I've put out a number since then, and I have playtested a lot of my games. This game, for some reason, I never actually went and played. I have seen people play it. I have heard, but I've never actually played it until last weekend.
Ash, did you know Chris was skating underneath the rigorous standards you've established for the Tiny Tome by not having playtested his game?
I am shocked and appalled and impressed.
Would never have known. There's a whole bunch of other great games in here. We're going to come back and talk a little bit more about some of the games that other people have made that y'all like. But we are in the middle of ZiMo right now. It's Zine month. We were talking about just before we went live. The requirements and everything that's happening. But basically, Kickstarter used to do a thing called Zine Quest. It happened in February. 3 weeks before February started, they said, hey, we're not. And they moved it to August. A lot of people already had things planned to launch. Zine Month is Fairlandy Studio and a number of other individuals who came in to kind of create a grassroots effort to democratize a community effort around bringing energy and enthusiasm to all the products that we're releasing during the month of February on Kickstarter, or more importantly, on sites like Itch, on Games on Tabletop, on GameFound, on people's individual sites. So ZiMo projects fund everywhere. The best place you can find information about all of those projects is over at zinemonth.com. We are not formally in any way, shape, or form affiliated with Zine Month, other than we're big fans and we're giving a lot of coverage to it because we love a lot of the creators who are part of that community, including some of these amazing folks as well. With that said, I asked each of y'all ahead of time to look at a few games, a game that you were excited about from Zine Month, and to shoot those over to me so that we could talk about them. There was a lot of common love for one, so one game's going to get a lot of love. But let's talk about some of the games that you were most excited about. Let's start with the game Tending, because it was one of my top most anticipated games of Zine Month. It was on my top 10 list for the games I was most excited about, but a number of you were excited about this game specifically. Oh, by the way, I just moved us to another screen, and I don't know if any of our faces are over the right names. So apologies if everybody's in the wrong spot. We'll go back to normal in a second. It's going to be okay. But who was a big Tending fan and wants to start by telling me what they love about it?
No, sorry, I'll let Tally go.
That is fine. Yeah, no, we were both kind of looking at this one, and I stumbled across. I can't even remember how I stumbled across it earlier on it, and just the look of the game was what immediately drew me in. This little thumbnail there just has such an interesting aesthetic, and this game is a mixed media journaling game, which immediately draws me in, and the whole sort of like collage aspect and the cutting, pasting, and physical components, I guess, is what I find really interesting. Yeah, like as you can see on there, it's where you create a fantasy religion inspired by elements of nature. And I love anything that's really crafty. If there's any sort of like physical component or crafty component, and like one of the top tier support for this game does include a collection of collage materials, and the creator kind of says in this blurb how their vision is like to have a physical zine that you can, alter and cut up and destroy or create and have that be your unique thing, which makes me think of the term like keepsake games or that I've seen floating around that I'm a big fan of, like Xingyan Core and Jian Shim, who've done a lot of work around that. And that's so appealing to me. So that's what really drew me towards this game.
Yeah, Dory, anything you want to add on that?
Tally covered so much of it, but also the fact that Tori, I think the person is Tori Truslow.
Yeah.
I have this really bad habit of like seeing R's as N sometimes, so I'm not sure if it's Tori or Tony, so apologies. But she, after a certain amount of funding, she is providing half of the proceeds to charity, which I think is just amazing and really like giving back in the spirit of ZiMo.
Yeah, this was a game I was delighted when I was seeing it. Early on, it was just a Google Doc follow page. Like there was no itch page up. There wasn't a ton of information about it, but like just that image. And I'm a huge fan of keepsake games, and I loved it. But when I saw the ephemera level, I was like, I have to back at that level. I can never. Anytime Gian launches a project that has all the ephemera in it, I can never get to it quickly enough to back at whatever ridiculously high level, because she like hand makes so much of the stuff that goes into her games to back at that level. But I'm always looking for keepsake games that have that same kind of tone to them, and I will always pop up to like, yes, give me the collage pack. Chris or Ash, did y'all have any thoughts on Tending that you wanted to toss in? Cool.
Sorry, I have to.
No, it's fine.
Unmute my microphone. Not really, except to say that I am also a huge fan of crafting and artifacts after play. The first project last year that Longtail Games did was The Walls of Druids, which was a 2-player craft and destroy game where you actually take the zine, you cut it up, and then you stick it back together. So I love that kind of play. I'm a big fan of that stuff.
I loved that game. Like that papercraft quality was a tremendous aspect of that. So I was a big fan of that project also too. I totally forgot that was one of y'all's though. It looked excellent. I have not actually had a chance to bust it out in any way, shape, or form, but I'm looking forward to it when I do. Let's take a look at the next game, which has been on my list to take a deeper look at also too. So I'm very excited about, and that's Dungeon Local 001. Chris, was that yours?
Yeah, that was mine. I just, as soon as I heard this described once, I instantly knew, like, I need this for putting into other games. Like this, it's just, it strikes a real chord with me. And it is essentially the way that I've heard it described before is it's what happens in a dungeon after the big bad is destroyed. Like basically all of the creatures unionize, and it's looks like the sort of thing I'm going to have to incorporate into my home D&D game. And yeah, it's
just go back later and now you're having to deal with the unionized realities of the labor force, right?
No, actually, my D&D players, I love them so much. They are basically starting a workers' revolt on their own against they've been turning all of the bad guys against the big bad.
Oh my gosh.
So this is perfect.
This is them. They're writing the prequel to this where they just rise up and throw off the dragon.
This will be what, when they come back, and then these will be their friends, basically.
I love it. I've been super excited to check out this project. I love the reverse dungeon trope, period. Like anytime somebody like kind of flips things around, I'm a huge fan of that. But I do love even some of the like little bits, like the art goes here, but the layout's really crisp. It's got a really solid look to it. I love that the procedures that it implies are very simple, so like really can layer on top of any game where dungeon crawling happens or is a remote concept. You can toss this into pretty easily. Has anybody else checked out this one?
I've looked at it, but I haven't had a chance to back it yet.
We're all gonna back all the games.
I know, it just like there's a checklist. I'm like, ooh, can I afford this right now or remind me later? I'm a queen of backing in the last 2 days. So.
That's right. Like if I'm either going to back in the first 2 hours or like the last few days, or sometimes if I'm like, oh man, they're about to go over, I'm going to back then because I want to be the one who be like, yeah, I made it happen. Awesome. Let's look next at, let's look at, why is my brain not working? Let's look at daddy issues. Daddy, this is yours, Chris, right?
No, I think that was Ash.
Oh, did Ash? Oh, sorry, that's what I meant. Ash, this is yours, Ash, right?
Yes, this is my this is my selection. So daddy issues is it just makes me
Build
laugh.
as a
So
sad
it's solo game. I'm just reading through the thing here. Yeah, have you heard the story of the father who, quote, went for cigarettes and never came back? You play as that guy. Don't get me wrong, you have nothing but the best of intentions. All you need to do is get a pack of cigarettes and come back home. But that's easier said than done. The city's full of dangers, fat pigeons, criminals, and werewolves. So it's I don't know how this game plays. I'm just looking at the description here. And it looks like it's a kind of puzzly solo thing that tells a story as you roll dice. It says that it's a highly thematic solo game that combines dark humor, procedurally generated narrative, and light management elements. And I come more from the board game world, so particularly in solo, I do like a bit more of the crunch that kind of comes maybe from kind of like roll and writes or something like that. But I just love this theme, and I love things that are kind of with, like, I say this in the best way possible, kind of just dumb premises that they lean into and they commit, and they make it such a they just absorb and make and leverage everything they can here. So I do love kind of goofy themes that afterwards make you go, that kind of makes me feel things, and I wasn't expecting that.
And this is definitely daddy noir, like, right?
Cheers.
Like it's got such good vibes to it. Anybody else have thoughts about daddy issues, your own or the game?
I hadn't seen this until Ash shared it. It looks hilarious.
I had not either.
Like, I love it. This looks great. Like, I love the theming and the concept and how just out of left field almost. Like, when you hear that, people make that joke about, going for cigarettes. This premise is not where, anybody would have thought. And I love that that's where they went. I definitely looks like I want to play this one. And I'm a sucker for the noir theming.
Awesome. And then you have a ZiMo project up, right?
I do.
So you've got Equinox, which is not launched yet.
No, not yet.
Tell us a little bit about Equinox.
Well, I actually didn't think I would have it in time for ZiMo, but all the stars aligned. I got all the materials all together, showed up on my doorstep. I finished the art layout, and I'm like, oh, well, might as well. We've got this inbuilt ZiMo thing going. I was originally planning to do it in March, but anyway, enough about that. Equinox is a storytelling game for 1 to 6 players. I specially designed it so that you could play it just as well solo as with a group, because as Tally was saying earlier, it can be really hard to find other people to get them all on board at the same time to slay the scheduling dragon and
make sure the stars align.
Yeah, so but if you can manage to get a group, you can also play all together. It is basically a fairy tale game. You create a fae character and go on fairy tale adventures in a turning court. If I don't know how familiar you are with like the fairy tale terms seelie and unseelie, but the High Queen wants you to change your face from being a generally good, benevolent fairy to a generally kind of self-obsessed fairy. So you are going to navigate all of that using tarot card draws and dice. And in addition, a somewhat original cap and check dice system. I like a little bit of crunch with my role-playing games, not too much. So you can ignore the system entirely if you want to, and just go by storytelling tarot draws. But if you want to resolve conflicts like competitions, combat, that kind of thing, you can use the attributes that you use to build your characters, as well as dice rolls in a very simple but fast-paced system.
Awesome. Love it. I can't wait to check it out once it goes live. It's over on Kickstarter. I dropped a link in the chat. We also have links to all these in the descriptions after we're done. So if you're watching this on YouTube later on, you can click over on the description to get link directly to any or all of these games. And so, by the way, CM Fragment in the chat says that they have daddy issues now. And so they went ahead and hopped on that, and they're very proud of it. Cool. I have one project I want to share, but it's the project that we always share when we're talking about this, the one dedicated one we do, and that's 13 Hunters over on GameFound. It's the only ZiMo project on GameFound, because it's hard to get on GameFound, but if you already have an account on GameFound, which I do, you can run subsequent projects. We are partnered up with Nuclear Obelisk, who is the creator of this game, who is looking for a home for it. I'm a huge fan of what Nobisk does. They've been a moderator in the ZiMo Discord server. They're part of the organizing team. They refuse to abuse that to advertise this project, and I encourage them to constantly. But it is a system agnostic set of bounty hunters that you can drop in to any game. And like when I mean any game, we played them in a sci-fi setting the other day, but I've dropped the sample ones I have into a couple of home games that were high fantasy. You can drop them in relatively easily as like PC backgrounds and Troika and other things like that. The information design is gorgeous. The visual design is amazing. It's all Nuclear's work and words. Sam Sorensen is the editor on this, but since it's the only RPG up on GameFound right now, there's not an ecosystem to help support it, and nobody is necessarily looking over there. But if you're somebody who runs trad games or gonzo games, or is just like, hey, my characters would love to make friends with some bounty hunters, I would highly encourage you head over to GameFound, check out 13 Hunters. You can go to ttrpg.link /13 Hunters, or I'll check that in the chat. But it is 100% Nuclear's project. We were just really excited to help market and support and host that and co-publish it to get it out into the world. But it's we're a little bit behind the curve right now. We're slightly over a third of the way through, and we're a little bit under a third of the way funded. So any support you can give helps. But there's some tremendous things that he has planned, and it's also my favorite thing about it. This is a very small thing, but it's a very cool thing. It is an A5 sheet, but it's like dossier formatted. So you'll actually it'll be filling it like this, where you'll flip up the book and there'll be a spread here and then all the information on that bounty hunter down below, so you can easily flip through it at the table. It's going to be a really gorgeous book, but check it out. I'm not going to talk about Vamp Nebula. Go support. I am making fast food inspired Troika backgrounds as my ZiMo project. You can go check that out at ttrpg.link /vampnugs. We're like $4 away from unlocking another friend for the vampire chicken nugget Troika background. Don't go support that. Go support 13 Hunters if you're going to throw money at something. With that said, let's talk not anymore about other people's projects, but let's talk a little bit more about Tiny Tome. Ash, I want to know from you first. First of all, do you have a game in this, or are you just organizing? I say just organizing is a small thing to do.
I do not have a game. Basically, I look for the opportunity to shift gears. So I have projects at the moment where I'm doing what if an elf could fly? And then I've got projects where I'm like, how much does this box weigh? And there's logistics and publishing and all of the stuff that nobody wants to get involved in. And I'm keeping it as separate as possible from my own kind of more explicitly creative fun stuff. So with the Tiny series, all I'm trying to do and hopefully doing here is just sort of giving a platform for the individual creators to have their thing in its entirety, complete and whole, and damage it as little as possible in the process of shifting it into a product and getting it out there. So it's a long way of saying no, I do not have a game in Tiny Tome or Tiny Library.
No, that's fine.
Nor do I have favorites. They're all beautiful children. Sure.
I asked everybody to tell me their favorites, so you're gonna have to you'd be like, this is one of my 50 favorites. There are for people who are not familiar with how this kind of started, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Essentially, you opened up towards the middle end of last year the Tiny Tome single page RPG jam over on Itch. It was just an opportunity to say, if you're interested in doing being a part of this process, having your one-page RPG considered for print and upcoming anthology, you can submit it for this. There was a set of rules that people needed to abide by, all of which are up on the screen right next to us, by the way, and people could submit to that. process if they wanted to be considered for publication. You got 113 people who submitted entries. So tell me about the 63 people you didn't think were good enough. No, tell me about the process of the jam, and tell me about the final selection process and kind of the build up to this, and then we're gonna let everybody else talk about cool games.
Cool. So, pretty much correct. So last year, the first one was Tiny Library. So that was the single card RPGs. But really, you need to talk about before that, which is Itch's culture of jams and of experimental, particularly role-playing games in the tabletop space. So I am very, very lazy. And what I want to do is find things that are cool that are already happening. And I'm particularly interested in processes and things and scenes more than individual games. So I saw Itch. I saw that there was this amazing thing happening with business card jams, and I saw that, as far as I could tell, that was the end of it. There was very, very few of them actually going into physical production, and not a lot of crossover into the rest of the board game world, which is kind of cool. Like Itch became this sort of like, like Galapagos Island, where like strange things could evolve away from the greedy hands of Kickstarter. But I'm one of those greedy hands, so I try to put it together. And yeah, so pretty much all I'm trying to do is just latch onto and embrace that Itch jam culture, and then connect it to the more physical publishing world. So yeah, I put a call out. I like things to be as sort of explicit and contractual as possible. Like I don't want like my friends being the people making submissions and being selected and things like that. I like it to be as clear as possible, as open to as many people as possible. And then I got more than 50, which is good, because then there's some curation and there's some sort of selection process going on. For the 63 that didn't get chosen, there's basically two things. One is they had multiple games, and particularly with Tiny Tome and going forward, it's only going to be one game selected per person. So that does mean that I might like all of the games that you submit, and yet I need to choose one, and that's not necessarily which one I like the most. It might be like which one fits the a space that isn't already filled, for instance, in the collection. So I'm doing some curation like that. But really, I want this to be kind of a snapshot. My dream would be that over 10 years, you could collect 10 of these series, and you could see like trends and changes in the way that these games do their thing over time. And that's not going to be as clear if it's like a collection of stuff that I personally dig. Right. You know what I mean? So that's that process. The other thing that they didn't get in is if they were like the wrong format. Like some people just submitted games that were multiple pages.
What? People submitting non-related content to a game jam? That never happens.
What? But yeah, it's been really great, and I'm loving. So I said right at the start that massively collaborative is kind of incorrect, and the reason for that is that the creators are kind of siloed before. Everyone has this hermetic seal around their page where they are like completely in charge of what's happening there. And the collaboration actually happens elsewhere in the project around the publishing side of things. There is a little bit of a community building up around the creators in the Discord and things like that. But I think that this is a different approach to collaboration, which is basically there's this word for called playing together alone or separate solo play or something like that, where children will sit and they'll draw and they'll color in, and everyone has their own page, and I'm drawing a dog. Well, this other kid's drawing like a penguin. And we're doing it together, but my page is my page. So there's in this process, there's never any point where I reach over somebody's shoulder and I say, well, I think that 6 should be a 7, because I'm not interested in that in this project. I do that in other things. And this is just about giving one person a stage and saying, go.
That's awesome. No, I love that. I love that clarity and that clarification. And I love that essentially you already have a start on some of the games that could go in the next tome, or that might not be a good fit still then, but people can always come back around if you know something's really good but just didn't quite fit the feel of what you needed for this one, or it was someone's second game. It's not oh no, we just didn't like it, but here's the rationale, and next time, if you want to put this game in instead of another new game, that's great, or whatever the case may be. Or next time, if you make a game that's actually just one page, great. We'd love to have it. But no, I think that's great. I'd love to hear from maybe some of y'all. Like you talked a little bit about your like your own games, but what was the process like for you as far as making the jam? Did you make something new for your game? But then also I'd love to hear from everybody maybe what's one other game that really stood out to you in the project that you just really love. Tally, let's start with you. What was it like for you as you were kind of prepping and submitting your game for the jam? Was it something you already had done and ready to go, or did you kind of make it bespoke for the one-page jam?
Yeah, so I did actually have something done and ready to go, but that was because I participated in the one-page solo RPG jam that had run earlier. I don't actually remember when, but it had been a few months before. So I think that was sort of the same mindset where I did have come in with the intention of making something small and one page, and which is kind of funny to say because this game is almost bigger than the other ones, because I did have a submission in the tiny library as well, which is business card size, and then I made a postcard sized game, so now we're up to A5 size, or I did it on letter originally, but so this is almost like, oh, I've got so much space to fill, but really kind of thinking about something that's snappy and fun and funny. It was kind of the main thought process I had, and it's surprisingly challenging, like this having just one page. Like I found with a business card, it's like, okay, you have so few rooms, such small rooms, so few words, like you really got to just pare it down. But as soon as you start getting like a whole page, it's like, well, but then it could be 2 pages or more. Like what can it keep going? And I think it's hard to keep that, like there's so much more potential for your idea to just like blossom into something even bigger. So I think there's like a bit of a challenge balancing between that. Yeah.
Awesome. And I would love to hear from you. What's one of somebody else's games in there that you really loved? One of the other contributors' games or projects that you just thought was tremendous.
Yeah. So I loved the Last Tea Shop, or Last Tea Stop, I guess is the. So this is a game that where you play. You run a tea shop at the sort of the space between the living and the dead, and people kind of pass to you before they have stop and have a cup of tea with you before they move on to wherever they will be moving afterwards. And it's a really lovely, like I actually did do an actual play of this, so I played it on stream, and it was just a really lovely experience to sort of meet these different visitors that come by. There's like tables, so you wouldn't necessarily get the same people if you play it multiple times, or if you and I both do a run through, we might experience different people. And I think the dev has actually adjusted and expanded the game a bit since I played it, but it just had such a nice, like it was just a really lovely experience and atmospheric and a comfy vibe. Or cozy sounds weird because when you talk about, like, we've got people who have departed and are moving on to say, but it's just interesting how much depth that I felt like I was able to get out of there with these questions and meeting these different people.
Awesome. I love it. Thanks so much for sharing. I can't wait to check it out. And again, I want to just express to everybody, the games are tremendously varied. I loved what I said about the curation process, because I do think the taking in of all the ideas, so you get outside of your own preferences, but then the curation of, out of this, how do we blend this together in the best most representative way possible, is a really good mix of democratization, but then creating a lot of clarity around, here's what we want to do with this project in a really good way. So that was one of the ones that kind of caught my eye as having some cozy tones, but having some real emotional tenor to it that could
for sure
really push you into some really good conversational spaces too. So Chris, how about you? Tell us a little bit about did you prep something bespoke? Did you have something already in the can? What was your process as you approached submission?
Sorry, I was on mute. Like I said, this was actually from one of the one-page RPG jams. So I already had this one in the can. I did reformat it for the book, just because mine was for a much different size, but translated pretty well. And I had also just done a different game. So like literally right as the selection process started for Tiny Tome. So I put that one in, but Playable Human Adults is the one that kind of fits better. So yeah, this is, like I said, this was actually the first game that I wrote and put out in the world, which is nice that it seems to get such a good response for like the first attempt. But yeah, this I really like the way the selection process that you did, Ash, allowed for such a wide variety of stuff. Because sometimes when you're participating in one of the game jams, a restriction of, something new for this, or something that, meets a lot of these more specific requirements, negates some of the games you're either working on, or you have to like gut part of a game to get it in there, or in my case, you put it out before actually being able to test it, things like that. But I like that through the kind of collaboration process you said, the way everything's come together is just really nice. Flipping through the sample booklet PDF that we have is like, there's just an amazing flow to it, even though it's all alphabetical. You start, weirdly enough, you start seeing like color themes and things progressing through it. It's really nice.
It is a really gorgeous book. It's really funny. All the games we've mentioned so far are like the black and white ones for the most part, but there is like amazing color pops and really kind of some very intense layout on some of the pages. It's very bright and colorful. We may hit a couple of those. Speaking of which, Chris, which other project in the book are you just super in love with?
There's a lot of them. I think I have to probably shout out 5-Second Rule by Lucky Newt Games. It is just a really good concept and the perfect kind of thing to just hand to someone, which is one of the things I like about one-page RPGs. You're not handing someone this massive book with all these rules and trying to expect everybody to get everything down. You can just hand them a rule sheet and get to, jump into the game very quickly. And this game is very good at that. As far as like stuff popping, I do want to call out, I actually have the PDF open here. I'm trying to make sure I get the name right on this. Where are you? There we go.
Is it Immortal Festival? Because that too.
Immortal Festival is also very good. I love the design of that.
I'll mention Immortal Festival because it's the first one that caught my eye as I was flipping through, and it's 100% like an art style and a theme that I jam on. So like it's gorgeous. But what was the one you were saying, Chris?
Symbiosis. Just that as far as like design and the fact that we're doing the like split pages on here, it worked so nicely. The design of that game is beautiful. Yeah, so it's
That's
a
little bit. Where one page is... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Doreen.
Is that the one where one page is upside down?
Yes.
Oh, beautiful! That's such a great concept.
Yeah. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell on the screen, but yeah.
One's playing one, one's playing the other, so you can just set the book down or the paper down. Yeah.
Yeah, one of you is the body, and the other one's the pest.
It seems like an art forward thing or a high concept sort of thing that one of the pages is upside down, and then you think about it for a second and you realize, oh, that's because the other person is over there. Why don't many books do this thing? It just makes sense.
So practical.
Yeah, I like I said, it was a very, very cool concept, and like it was, as I was flipping through it again, caught my eye, not only because it's a big colorful 2-page set, but because you hit it and you're like, wait a minute, and you immediately want to stop and pause and look around at what is this game. Doreen, we already talked about it. You like called shot the one that you wanted to talk about in the chat before anybody else. So tell us a little bit about your approach to what you did, and then let's talk about soap after that.
Okay, so with unreality strictness, it's funny when Tally said earlier that, that the limitation of paring something down into a single page. Oh, is everything okay? Sorry, my connection seemed to. My connection good?
It looks like we may have lost somebody, so we all kind of shifted around a little bit.
Yeah, sorry, I'm back. I don't know what happened. My internet just completely glitched out for a second.
Yeah,
okay.
And it's got. Oh, I see what's going on. Hold on, I got a boot. I got a boot extra, Chris. Hold on. There we go. There we go. There we go. I'm gonna have to shuffle some people around on screen. But Dorian, go ahead.
So, oh gosh, now I've completely lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry.
Tell us a little bit about your tell us about your submission process. So, what did you already have the game ready to go? Were you was it something you worked on specifically for this? How did it work out for you?
I did work on this specifically for the jam. Like I mentioned earlier, the germ of the idea was already inside my brain because of James Chip, who also has a game in Tiny Tome. It's called what's it called again? The Hidden Heart or something?
I think it's the cutout.
The cutout, yes, because it's like I just remember that it was a heart shape. But after he did that 2-stats generator, and I'm all like, I can make a game out of this. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. Let me make a single-page game for Tiny Tome. Except that as I was writing it, I realized that I wanted to write a lot more for it. I did restrict myself, though. I'm very proud of myself for my self-discipline, and I think I managed to put in everything that you need to play the basic game into just the single back and forth page.
Awesome.
Another game. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Another game that I really liked that we were talking about just now was Soap, and that was like one of the first games that actually caught my eye on the Tiny Tome Jam game page. It's basically about characters in a soap opera, like aspiring starlets and stars who want to make their way using performance or conniving or, just straight out criming in order to make their way to the top of the soap opera food chain. And I'm a super dramatic person, in case none of you could guess from my very meek demeanor, and I just love the entire idea of just letting my overacting self out with this game.
I love it.
Soap has the thing that you have the kind of the character with two faces, right? You have like the actor, and then you have the character that they're sort of playing in the.
So yeah, I think there's this. It's like because you have to try and balance your likability as a performer versus the amount of actual, conniving and backstabbing that you do behind the scenes in order to, make sure that you get your proper amount of time in the spotlight. I love games with that kind of duality.
And the stats of the game spell out the name of the game. So like you gotta give extra points for anytime somebody can land that elusive goal of stats spelling out game name. There are so many games in here. I just like, it was really funny. I do remember opening it up and being like, well, there's kind of a table of contents, but like there's no page numbers. How will I know which one is which? And it took me like half a second to be like, oh, they're just all in alphabetical order. All right, never mind. So it was a second of me being dumb, but it does make it like super easy to navigate the book. The fact that the layout is so varied on each one makes it really easy as well. There's an absolutely amazing like international community of people who are contributing to these, but there's just, again, so much great art, and it's different voices coming through in very different ways. And I love the idea of it kind of being a place where you'll be able to, over the next however many years that you're able to do these, track things that are happening in minimalist indie RPG design. Ash, I know that you said you don't want to tell everybody who your favorite child is, but is there an RPG that didn't get mentioned in this book that you really want to call out or just think highlights what you're hoping for out of the book really well?
That's a good question. So I'm kind of painting myself as somebody with odd tastes here. But there's one book that I think one game that does highlight in an interesting way something that is kind of only possible through a platform like this, and that is A Batman Goes Down. This is a very slight content warning here. This is a game that was based off a kind of funny thing that happened on Twitter about, I don't know, 9 months ago or something like that, where apparently some DC lawyers had to talk to the people making the Batman film about some things that Batman would and would not do. And everyone has forgotten about this, of course, because it didn't matter. And it was on Twitter for about 24 hours and it was funny. And then we moved on with our lives, but not Jason. So Jason made a game about this. And normally that would be sort of the end of it. But now this very dumb Twitter moment can be immortalized forever, and I think that's something kind of cool and interesting here. Like, like the boat, the boat that got stuck in the canal. We should have had like 1,000 games about that, but it was too that's amazing. We should have had movies, we should have had all sorts of stuff, but the publishing world was too slow to catch that moment. And I love that we are able to provide a platform to let a Batman Goes Down say what it wants to say about that moment. So that's the kind of thing that I'd like to see more of, is publishing reacting at the speed of social media, which, now that I say it, makes me sound just like a bad person. But I think that would be really awesome to see more of the funny, dumb stuff that happens on the internet make it to IRL. That would be cool. So that's why Batman Goes Down would be
Awesome.
my choice.
I have a question. Is there a reason it is out of order alphabetically?
Yes, so there are 3 books at the end, which would require you to cut the page
They
out.
look like they were
So
different formatting, so that's why I was curious about. Yeah.
Exactly. We're also thinking of changing some of the pages because some of them are, I don't really know how to describe it. They're kind of one A4 page spread out, so you kind of have to orient them, differently. So I'm thinking of putting them together as well. But yeah, at the moment, that's why those 3 are at the back, because if you do follow the rules, you will have to cut the zine up.
There you go. Yeah, I noticed they were all back to back, and it looked like at least one of them had a cutting element too. So I was curious if that was it. But again, I wanted to call it out because it is considerate design for how the book works. I actually feel like if my big temptation if I had this book would actually be to get to, if I had another copy, would be to unbind it. Even though that would make a little bit of an unwieldy thing, I would almost want to ring bind this so I could pull them off and spread them out and make them a little easier to pull out and stick back. So I may pick up an extra copy just so I can tear it apart and do something else with it.
The kind of implied play use for Tiny Library was definitely open the box, throw them on the table, shuffle them around. So that's exactly what I would love to do here. And I did do some print tests, and they were like loose leaf pages, and there was something really cool about that. So I do think a tear out in future would be a kind of fun thing, especially focusing on those games that require you to do that.
Yeah, the only people who I know who really have done this, where there was the Ultimate Micro RPG set that came out with Simon Schuster in partnership with James D'Amato and a ton of other authors. They did a lot of really similar stuff. Was a really cool project, very beautiful games, tons of great creators. If you like the idea of Tiny Tome, go check out the Ultimate RPG, Micro RPG book. But one of the great things when you work with a giant publisher who has money is they can just be like, yeah, we're going to make all the pages tear out. And so you can tear out each of the pages as you go. So, hopefully one day Longtail will be able to do that kind of, Simon Schuster level stuff right out of the box. But either way, like I said, it's worth picking up, I think, 2 copies of it so that if you want to do that, you absolutely can. And then is there going to be a digital? 3? Get 3 copies. Get 3 copies of the game. Is there going to be a digital release also too, or only physical?
Yes, so there's digital as well. We do that through Itch, like with Tiny Library, and we're going to be doing some templates. There was somebody asking, I want to do a single card. Can I have a template with some lines and things? And I kind of like that, so I'm going to keep putting out templates as well, and hopefully get some people sort of bashing together their own games.
Yeah, layout templates and other things like that are tremendously helpful. Keegan, one of our regular stream appearances, and one of our good friends, Keegan EXE, their layout got a ton of action during the last ZiMo. One of my favorite things about Zine Month has really been some of the craft that we've been able to explore as a community. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, people like press kits now all of a sudden, and people are like, oh, I know how to get coverage for my RPG. And I was like, you sickos, I thought you wanted games. You all just wanted to know how to make press kits because I taught a workshop on it. And within like 2 weeks, it was like my 3rd or 4th highest viewed video that wasn't like sponsored content by somebody, right? Like, it's now my #1 most viewed video is how to build a press kit. I
think I watched it twice, so it helped.
But no, like it's been so great, and so having tools like the layout pieces that come out of that though are tremendously helpful for somebody who's just getting into it, who wants to know how to do it, or at least give them a sense of what this should look like. So I love seeing more and more stuff come out. Maybe we'll have a tiny RPG toolkit at some point in time in the future where it's just like, here's all the tools you need to be able to do this. It was a blast to have all of y'all on. I can't wait to see where the project goes. I know you're waiting a little bit more on details. If people are watching right now, if you have questions, we've got a few minutes late. I'd love to bring your questions to the stream. Go ahead and type them into chat if you want to. If you're a big fan of itch and game jams, though, man, have I got something coming up I want to tell you about. That's the Together We Jam. Last year, we worked with Marcus Linderham and a global team of people to release a game called Down We Go, which is an emergent narrative OSR, or probably post-OSR dungeon crawling game, but it has some amazing narrative tech in it. It's a tremendous minimalist system. The core rules fit on one page. We could have put it in this book. We didn't think to submit it, but we did also are releasing it as it's going to be almost 70-page kind of maximalist presentation of extra procedures, other things you can use to help build out the world. But we're doing a game jam for content based on that game, or based on the setting of that game, or just based on the system called Together We Go. You can check all that out over at itch.io/jam/TWJ. I'll drop that in the chat, but if you go to itch and search Together We Jam, it'll pop up also too. But it's a great way to create rules light one-page core rule games that are also the character sheet. It's a really easy to use system, and we just released our creator kit today that has all the different little bits and bobs that you can add on from all the other procedures and pieces that we added. All of the procedures are less than a page. So they're either one page or a half-page sheet of procedures that then show the person running the game what to do and how to do that thing. So if this is your style, please feel free check out Together We Jam later on. Also, again, we want to remind people that we do streams on a regular basis. You can hit follow or subscribe to check out all the things that we do. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., we are playing Pirate Borg, which is a Morkborg hack. It is a completely new setting. It adds a 5th stat, completely new classes, and it's set on the high seas, not in Galgenbeck, in a completely different universe and continuity, but with that great doom metal maximalist presentation of Morkborg thrown into a different thing. So come join us for that if you want to. We've got a 2-part stream happening over the course of the weekend between us and TPK Roleplay, our most ancient enemy and our greatest lover. TPK Roleplay's Top Shelf. We're going to be doing a 2-part series of Himbos, which is another ZiMo project. They're going to do part 1 over on TPK, and then the characters are going to matriculate over to +1 on Monday to play some more Himbos. So check out either or both of those. We have more interviews and other stuff coming up next week on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. More actual plays in the work also too. February is a very busy month for us, but we would love to have your support in helping make that content happen. Let's see if anybody has any other questions out there, or do any of y'all, this is your chance, you get to hang out with each other. Do any of y'all have any questions for anyone else on the stream? And this is your chance to put them on the spot right in the moment. Anybody? Cool.
What's your favorite color?
Everybody,
Purple.
whip around real quick. Got to know those favorite colors. Doreen, let's start with you.
Purple. Despite the overabundance of pink here, purple is actually my favorite color.
There we go. All right, Chris, how about you?
Pink or green.
Pink or green. Callie?
Yes.
Pink.
Pink? Oh, pink, awesome. Ash, how about you? You asked the question. We got to get an answer.
I instantly regretted asking that because then I'm going to have to answer it. I think historically it's purple, and I always say purple. I think it's purple.
Awesome.
An excellent choice.
My wife and I are both those boring people who always say black, but I'll nuance it by saying I'm a really big fan of charcoal as a color.
Ooh.
not just black, but that slightly grayed, usually little bit of a visual textured black. And if not historically green, when I didn't say black as a child, I think was my favorite color too. So it doesn't look like we have any more questions in the chat. I really want to encourage people. You can go to ttrpg.link /tinytomeKS. I just realized we had it at the bottom of the page the entire time. It does work. ttrpg.link /tinytomeKS to sign up to follow this project, to be able to get 1, 2, or even 3 copies of the game. Go ahead and get a baker's dozen if you want. It's not going to hurt anybody. Give them out for Christmas.
It's the perfect Christmas gift. Yeah, just stock up, and then when it's last minute you're thinking like, what do I get for like Great Aunt Marge, and you're just like, I'll just take from my stack of Tiny Tomes and wrap it, and you're set to go.
There you go. It's been an honor to have each of you all on. As creators, I just want to let you know, like, our channel is here for you. If you ever want to come back on, do an actual play a game with us, feel free, reach out, let me know. We'd love to have any of y'all on at some point in the future. We're super excited to be supporting the work that Longtail is doing. Ash is doing a lot of tremendous things in the community, and again, these type of grouped projects, and I do love the vision of like everybody has their own silo, but we put them all together. I'm a huge fan of that space also too, because I think it lets people explore their own ideas and then look at what they can do in community with each other as well. So we're very excited about that. CM Fragment wants to shout out Ossuary and Tiny Tome, so we'll do that real quick. And then I'm going to kick us all off. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
Yeah.
Oh, this is Alfred's. I'm a huge fan of Alfred's work, and this is absolutely gorgeous. So there we go. This is Ossuary. Picking the bones of OSR clean and then crushing them underfoot. Ossuary is a fierce, minimal delving system optimized for speed and play by post. This is a game of bone collector. In this game, a bone collector guides a group of players through a game of traps, terror, and treasure, where creative problem solving is the key. So go check that out, along with all these other games. This has been Prestige Class with Chris, Tally, Doreen, and Ash, members of the Tiny Tome team. And until next time, class is dismissed. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Thank you all for coming. Bye.
Bye.